Hello buddy, I'm Dutch, and if you like hiking tips, fun adventures, and great gear, hit like and subscribe to join my vlog journey. And if you'd like to be notified when we upload a new video, click that bell as well. All right, let's go.
Hello buddy, I'm Dutch, and today we're going to go over gear, care, storage, and a little bit into repair and cleaning. So, well, we put a lot of money into this stuff, so we want to make sure that we take good care of it. And one of the things that we spend some of the biggest camping dollars on is quilts and other down products. So I take special care with them. I have a lot of quilts, and I store them like this in a closet. This is up in my office, but if I was doing this at home, I would make sure that I keep them on an upper floor. I really do not store gear in the basement, and biggest reason is you don't want things to get moldy. In all of this, moisture is not your friend. You have to make sure things are not only dry, but they're going to stay in a dry atmosphere. So I have two different types of hangers that I use for hanging my quilts. There's two reasons for that. One, the one hanger works better, but the other is I can easily go through here and find which one is a top quilt and which one is a bottom quilt. So I have this black hanger. I use that for a top quilt, and these wooden one, well, that one is going to be used for bottom quilts and quilts that I just can't wrap around it. What that does for me is when I need to look for the proper quilt, now a lot of mine have the same print, and I will have a top and bottom in the same print, and you really can't see from here which is a top or a bottom, but what I can see up here is this must be a top quilt because it is on that type of a hanger. This must be a bottom quilt, and so on. But you're getting the idea. Sleeping bags, they're going to go onto the same thing that a top quilt can, and well, it makes it very easy. The other thing here is I know a lot of companies, they give you storage bags. DwR&x, they have a really nice one that you can store it in. Those are very acceptable. They're great for putting them on a shelf. They're kind of like a cube. Actually, I have some down here. I like to keep mine hung up, but these are DwR&x storage bags. What's really nice about these is you can see in them, and then they have kind of like a breathable fabric on one end so that if there was any moisture in there, hopefully it can get out of it and the quilt can breathe. All of this, you want to make sure that things are not compressed and are going to breathe and not attract any moisture. So I am storing them in a very warm place, and I like to keep them upright like this. I know some people like to store their things in bags, and a lot of companies, they will send you a storage bag. And what I find is that a storage bag takes up pretty much this whole space because it winds up like a big round sack. If you hang that up, I have a challenge with that. And imagine if all these were in bags. You can't see the quilt, and I think it just doesn't store it. I mean, how can you get any better than this? Because you are keeping it at full loft, you're hanging it, you can totally see them. And I love my quilts. So I shy away from those laundry bag type of storage, but mostly it's because of storage space. If you have plenty of space, you can hang them on the end of a shelf, and so not a problem. Here's a big one for me, and I hope you are enjoying the Anaconda. So this is the Anaconda completely compressed. Sometimes I come back from a trip and I'm going right back out, and if I'm doing that, I don't completely take this out. Now I'm doing this one-handed, but what I will do is if I am just going to be going for a day, I'll just pop the compression straps like this, and this just keeps it under less compression. You know, it's really not good to compress. I mean, when you go and you're putting them in these things, it's almost a must because our stuff is fluffy and we got to make it small, but realize that it's not the greatest thing for it. You definitely don't want to be storing it. Do it as little as possible of keeping it compressed. If I was just coming back for a day, I would just keep it like this, pulled out of my pack, just pack those compression straps. It would be easy to get it set back up. But if it's going to be long-term storage in any way, shape, or form, what I like to do there is I completely pull it out. I find the continuous loops, and then I hang it by the continuous loops. I actually have 2 quilts in here. I got a pillow in here, and I want to have it under no compression if it's going to be any amount of time at all. The stuff that I keep in my Anaconda, these are my main rigs. These are the ones that I grab and go. So they're pretty important to me. These are my high-end quilts that I'm going to be carrying, and generally going to be my ultralight. So I have one that's really a special mention here, water filters. You know, we go and you come back, if you are utilizing filters either as an inline or maybe you put them on with a bag. I personally use Sawyer, but this is the way that I store my water filters. So I got the mini in here, and then I got that big one by Sawyer. This is only water. I have gone and put like a couple drops of bleach in it, you know, kill any bacteria or anything that would be in there, but I really don't think it's necessary. The reason I do this is because I want to go and make it so the filter doesn't dry out and crack. Also, you can actually get mold in there. And imagine you're putting through dirt into this thing. It's going to have bacteria, and then you just can keep it damp and dark. If you submerge it in this water, then it is going to be ready for you to go pull it out. And so I put it in a mason jar, and I am good to go. You know, I have storage bins for everything, and I keep everything in different groups. Like I'll keep all my water bladders, and I'll keep all my hammocks and such in all the different bins. Try to keep them labeled. It's really a mess right now, so I really don't want to show them off too much. But the real point to it is, yeah, my stoves. I want to have all my stoves in a bin. And also, it's very important that all my backpacking gear is kept on an upper floor, so that it is not going to get moldy or have that damp smell that you get from a basement. Even if you're running a dehumidifier, it is definitely a rule for me. All camping gear stays out of the basement. Also, when I put things away, I go to great lengths. Take that time to make sure things are dried out, including your guidelines that come off your tarp. Maybe your tarp didn't get wet and it didn't rain, something like that. But we want to go. The strings will hold a little bit of moisture in there, and I have a place that I already have established with some hooks that I put on my back porch. I got a covered back porch, but you could do this any place in your house where you have some hooks, and you just hang it up there, let it dry, and then put it back away. I store my tarps in my tarp sleeves, and then I'm pretty well good to go like that. So that really covers for storage. Let's talk about cleaning and repairs. I don't really wash too much of my gear. Obviously, I'm washing my clothes that I hike with, but I don't wash my backpacks, and I will only wash my hammock or my quilts if they really need washed. The only time they really need washed is if they got damp and I failed in another way. I suppose I've gone sometimes hiking and it's just been raining day after day, and my gear has just gotten wet and there's been no time to dry it out. Try not to do that anymore. Try to find sunny days to hike in, but that's not always possible. And especially if you're in a real long distance one. I remember on my through hike taking my down sleeping bag, and you know, when you're first starting, you're cramming it into a stuff sack, and because it's all wet, I could just put it right into the stuff sack and it would totally fit in there because the down has been all clumped up from being moist. Back then, we didn't have the great DwR coatings that are on the down that are on today. But the DwR is what I really want to hammer on. So I wash almost everything. I wash my clothing in DwR because I want that to be waterproof. I apply a DwR, or it's already applied to the hammocks and to the quilts. Very often it's already applied to that. My puffy jacket, generally they're going to have a DwR coating on them, and if they don't, we can spray them and put a DwR on it. You can wash it and get DwR on it, but they call that durable water resistance coating for a reason. It's not very durable, so that's why they call it that. And after like 20 washes, that coating is negligible that's on there. Every time you wash it, you're removing some of that DwR in particular. To combat that, you can wash things with items that are not going to remove that DwR coating, or that can apply it. Here I have some Nikwax. I'm a big fan of the Nikwax product line, and this is down wash this is what I'm going to use to wash my quilts. Probably my puffy jacket. And if I feel like I need to get a DW, sometimes they have the sprays, and I'll just spray a coating on it. I generally do not want water penetrating any of my gear, and DWR does that. I hardly ever wash my quilts. Sometimes I take them and I put them on a very warm sunny day, put them out in the sun. I feel that goes to great lengths to restore them. The UV light kind of kills things, that any bacteria or anything, and really get them completely dry. And I've only got a couple instances that I've had to actually wash things because they started to lose their loft. I can cycle through a lot of quilts, so your mileage may vary. You may not have so many quilts using the same quilt every time, and body oils tend to get into it, and you find, look, my loft isn't as good anymore. Also, just using it, putting it into a compression stuff sack, it can be rejuvenated through washing. So I have two ways that I wash, but I've been going down to the same way now for quite some time. So I think I take that back. I really don't use a washing machine anymore. And the method that I am using now is I use a 5-gallon bucket. So I'll maybe fill this up a third of the way, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm putting a 0-degree quilt in here, it's going to be, I'm going to need a little bit more water. But I want to keep this little water, but I want to saturate it. I want to be running water through it. And I want to keep the amount of, detergent, which I use Woolite usually. And I do this for my hammocks also. I used to put them in washing machines, but man, those agitators, it's not good for any part, especially if you have a bug net that's attached to it. Do not put that in a washing machine. They do make bigger buckets than this, so let's say you're doing a 0-degree quilt, you might have a hard time doing that in a 5-gallon bucket, but for the most part, it's going to work for every purpose that I got. And I have used this same bucket for all of my gear washing. And you want to get in there and just keep pushing water through it and get water flowing through it. I like to keep the amount of water for the washing cycle to be pretty low, because that way I don't need to put as much detergent in there. And I want to keep the detergent, actually I'm using Woolite, but I like to use, I'll say, a strong mixture of the Woolite, because I feel it's going to be not harmful, but I kind of like the cleansing of it, and that's what you're really trying to do. You're trying to get out those body oils, whether you're doing that for your quilts. Now we have quilted hammocks, so we have to take care of that the same way. And I certainly am doing it for my hammocks, and that's really easy in here. And this is how I started doing for my hammocks, and then I decided I'm going to migrate that to doing for my quilts too, because man, they get twisted. It's a long item and it gets twisted around that agitator, and it is only going to cause quilts harm, and we don't want to do that. We're trying to use ultralight materials. So once I feel like I have done that, maybe it just takes 5 minutes of going and pushing water and the detergent through it back and forth. Then what I want to do is rinse it, and rinsing it, I just take a hose, I drain this out, and I keep blasting it, and I keep pushing, and I will do that until it comes clear water. No detergent is coming out of it. It does not take me very long to do it. I think it's a little bit more effort, but it's less time than washing it in a washing machine. And I find that it does a good enough job. Then I go and I put it, if it is a hammock, I just hang it outside and let it dry in the sun. Do not put it in the dryer. And lastly, if you are doing your quilts or anything that is quilted, maybe your puffy jacket, when you go to dry it, those I do run through the dryer. And for that, I have, these are meant only for, they've never been used. The only thing these are used for is for washing sleeping bags and quilts and other down products. And I put these in with the dryer. I use very low heat, and I let that go for a very long time, because not only do you want it to be, you need those balls to bounce around and break up that down, and it really has to do that to complete dryness, or at least like 90% of the way dry. Because if it's damp and you go and you put it out to hang, it's not going to get fluffy again. And that's really what you're trying to do, is to get it fluffy again. So it may take, depending on it might take an hour on low heat to really get that going and having those tennis balls bouncing around and breaking it up. After that, I will still hang it out. If I can find a nice sunny day, I'll keep it out on that. But that is really all I do for my quilts. And like I said, I am not doing this very regularly at all. Many quilts I've never washed. And I would say through the lifetime of a quilt, I mean, if it gets washed every 3 years, that would be often. One more piece is sometimes, particularly down jackets, you will get either a little tear in it or a burn hole. They do make great patches, but I have a simpler way. And what I use, you can see right here, that I just go and I apply a little tiny bit of super glue on there, and I'm putting it right on the down. This had a pretty big hole, as you can kind of see there, but the glue will penetrate just a little bit right there, and it hold that down in place so that down isn't going to come out. And as far as I'm concerned, that is good as new. So I'm a big fan of Patagonia's clothing line. And well, burn holes happen, and this is going to fix that. Most gear that you buy will last you a lifetime if you really take good care of it. And that's good because a lot of this stuff is quite pricey. If you buy a really good quality quilt, hammock, tarp, you're doing really good in life if you wear it out, because it takes a lot of uses to wear this stuff out. Some gear that you buy is meant to just look good on an Amazon page, and you're going to buy it and you're going to find that it is, through a season, it will be showing wear and stitches will be tearing out and it's not going to make it. But if you buy that really good quality gear, it needs minimal attention to making sure that it stays nice, and then it should last you a lifetime. Well, with that said, thank you everybody.
Well, thanks for joining me on that adventure, and be sure to check out some other playlists. And of course, check out DwR&x for some of the greatest hiking gear on the planet. As always, thank you everybody.